Hello world, it's John Pinto, your roving realtor, bon vivant, video blogger, and I am here with Ted Stephanos from HomeGuard Natural Hazards Disclosure. How are you, Ted?
I'm doing good today, John. How you doing?
Excellent. And Rafael Betances, tell us a little bit about your role at HomeGuard.
Hey everybody, this is Rafael Betances, your San Francisco North Bay Territory Manager.
Excellent. And today we're going to talk about gas transmission, pipeline, and hazardous liquid pipeline disclosure. Now, I'm going to think, Ted, that before we had that little episode in San Bruno, where I'm not quite sure, but I think at least a couple of dozen houses blew up and burned down in what was a PG&E gas line explosion. So please tell us a little bit about the history, what happened in San Bruno, the genesis of the disclosure, and how it affects people when they're buying a house and reading the disclosures.
Okay. Well, one thing to understand when you're looking at the NHD report, and of course there's this section on gas transmission and hazardous liquid pipeline disclosure, the buyer needs to understand that this is not covering every individual gas pipeline that are going to homes and businesses. These are just the major transmission pipelines. And what happened in San Bruno was one of the main gas pipelines that run from the South Bay to the North Bay had a flaw and ruptured and exploded. And of course, you know, we had a tragic scenario there that occurred. So as usually what happens in California, anytime you have a major disaster like this, you have legislation that passes and subsequent disclosure, and that gets kind of rolled up into the NHD report, even though this isn't really a natural hazard, it's more of a man-made issue. So there's two disclosures. Well, there's one disclosure. Basically, it's a buyer beware. They're saying, here's the information. If the buyer wants to, they can go to the NPMS, which is the National Pipeline Mapping System link that we provide in the NHD report. And what you would do is you would select your state, you would select your county, and it would pull up a map that would show the high transmission pipeline. And so these are not only natural gas pipelines, but also liquid pipelines as well. So that could be carrying jet fuel pipelines, which we had a construction crew in Walnut Creek about 15 years ago accidentally ruptured a jet fuel pipeline that killed a few people, and I think a couple homes burned down as well. And then we also have other liquid pipelines, so that can be transporting crude oil. So we have quite a few of those in Contra Costa County, Alameda County, well, mainly Contra Costa, Solano County, where we have a lot of refineries. So those are the two pipelines that are going to show up in blue lines and red lines on the map. But like I said, what's important to realize is that these are not showing the feeder pipelines that are going to homes and businesses, just the major transmission pipelines under high pressure.
So Ted, what's the takeaway? Because most homes have access to natural gas. So it would appear to me that it's certainly a disclosure, buyer beware, FYI, but what can you do about it other than moving to a remote area that has no pipelines?
Yeah, good question. What can you do about it as far as, aside from being aware of the fact that they're there? You're saying, what can you do about it? That's a good question, John. You got me stumped on that one because,
well, there's really no mitigation. Basically, I mean, for lack of a better description, it's a CYA disclosure for everybody. By the way, there is a gas pipeline here that could explode, FYI, and there's not a damn thing you could do about it, except that you hope that the entities responsible for maintaining it, the entities that are responsible for working around it, are using good safety measures. And if you want to go off grid and just have a propane tank, you got that option too, which has all its own separate problems. Is that basically the summary of it?
Yeah, that is true. That is
Okay.
true. Now, there's less of these transmission pipelines than you would think, though. Like in San Mateo County, where this pipeline exploded, there's really only two that run north-south. One was through San Bruno, and one was along Highway 101. In many cases, they are right around along train tracks or major freeways. They usually don't go under homes like this one did in San Bruno. Now, that was in a hillside area very close to the San Andreas Fault. So, I never read any reports that caused the issue, that caused any failure in the pipelines as well. But, they say it might have been a bad weld that occurred many years ago. So, it's like one of those things that you really, really hard to predict because we have aging infrastructure, right? And so,
You took the words right out of my mouth. So
Yeah.
let's go there for a minute. So if you're buying a house in, say, San Mateo County or San Francisco or Oakland, and you're looking at this and trying to make a decision, would a logical conclusion and an option be maybe I want to consider buying a home, a newer home, maybe a brand new home in an area that has relatively new infrastructure serving the community? Would that be a reasonable takeaway? Got you stumped on that one.
Yeah,
I know you got
would
an opinion.
I would take that away. I mean, of course, sometimes you have a lot of newer homes that just aren't built as well as the old home, like a good old Craftsman, So I don't know I don't know, that's like a whole nother sit down discussion around a round table, I think, with a bottle of wine and something. So I don't know if that would.
Well,
that's a real.
I'll go ahead and launch on that one. I think, when you buy a house, there's price and there's cost. Okay, the price is how much you pay. The cost is the purchase price plus all the deferred maintenance. And if we're going to go a little bit further on that, you're not only buying the house with all the deferred maintenance, but you're buying all of the community infrastructure with all the deferred maintenance, whether that translates into propositions that are added to your property taxes to improve the infrastructure. So, I try to empower people with these videos and, rather than looking at it and saying, okay, so what? If I'm going to buy in a certain area, I'm going to be stuck with aging infrastructure. Maybe another option is buying in an area where you're more independent, which would be a rural area with propane tanks instead of gas lines. Or I'm buying in a newly developed area that has newly developed infrastructure. Now, not to say that that is your opinion, but that would be my takeaway if I was looking at my options on gas lines being symptomatic of general aging infrastructure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and you would have to weigh the pros and cons of every situation, obviously, but like I did say, there in many counties, these transmission pipelines aren't all over the place. They're usually
right.
One over here, one over there. Some counties, like I was talking about, Contra Costa County, especially Antioch, Pittsburgh area, where there's the refineries, Martinez, there is just a massive network of pipelines.
Right. Right. Excellent. Well, word to the wise. Thank you for enlightening us. Again, it's not something that comes up, but with the natural and non-natural hazards that we're all experiencing, whether it's bad air quality, wildfires, floods, et cetera, owning your own home is still very desirable. People want to do it. And I think the kinds of information that you're putting out, Ted, is going to make home buyers much more equipped in terms of deliberating exactly where it is that they want to buy. That's my takeaway on this. So given this plethora of information you have available for our viewers, if they wanted to check out where they could get that information, where would you direct them?
Yeah, they can come to HomeGuard.com and click on the NHD tab, and my contact information is there as well. I can be contacted at 408-690-2149, and I can, this information that we're providing in our reports, it's public information, so anybody can access it. It's just we have it all in one place and all tidied up in a report. So.
Well stated. And Rafael, if they're too lazy to proactively search for the website and they just want to call their HomeGuard concierge, how can they contact you to get whatever information they need?
Absolutely. You can feel free to text me, email me, or call me at 707-616-8762. And if you just have any questions, or you just, you're rushing from listing to listing, showing to showing, and you want to send in your order through a text message, that works too.
Well stated, gentlemen. So thank you for looking at our video, and we will see you on the next page.